Story 1. Moments later, it was as if someone had stood up onto the bed and kicked me square in the chest. I sat up, clutching my chest, trying to hand the baby to my husband. He took the baby and ran to the hall to get a nurse. My heart was beating so hard that I could hear it in my ears, and as I looked down, I could see it through my gown. I was vaguely aware that my husband was panicking, since he could not get a nurse into the room. Then the light began in the corner of the room near the ceiling, just behind my husband. My energy began leaving my body and flowing into the light, then went into the sky, flowing with the light. The light carried me off into space, beyond our universe, and into a ball of light so bright that I could see it long before I actually reached it. Energy was flowing not only into the massive ball of light but from it as well. The light was heading off in various directions through the multiverse. I entered the ball of light that I now know as the Central Sun. I began having visions of my life, not just this one but every life I had ever lived. This life was the last vision I was shown. The visions were almost like those pictographs I had as a kid. I was shown key points in my lives. I then was given visions of the bad things I had done, as well as the good. My good seemed to outweigh the bad, although in past lives I had done some pretty appalling things. Then I was shown a vision of the Earth. Next, I saw the vision of myself approaching the Central Sun. It was as if I were being shown that the Central Sun was where all energy comes from and returns to, no matter where one calls home from lifetime to lifetime. However, I did encounter familiar energies of loved ones who had passed from this lifetime and other past lives. They were not physical matter, just energy. I knew them instantly and they knew me, especially those who had been with me in other lives beyond this one. These visions came from within my subconscious, and I understood things that I couldn't possibly have known. I was not met by another entity who claimed to be God. I suddenly was well versed in the knowledge of how the universe works and where dark energy and matter come from. This has led me to research quantum physics to try to understand what happened to me. I was shown a small portion of what my future holds as my purpose in this life was revealed to me. My purpose is to love and be loved and to teach and be taught. I am to be a beacon for those like me, those who have experienced a life-altering reality and are seeking understanding. I was to raise my children to lead from their hearts and accept all of humanity, to help them seek balance and understanding. Everything was hyper-realistic, perhaps more real than I have ever known reality to be. I felt like I was there for years and was sure I had died that day in the hospital holding my baby. I tried to check in on my husband and kids, only to realize that only moments had passed. I realized time is an illusion, and our energy can communicate without word, and it can travel without measure of speed. As I checked in on my family, my newborn daughter cried, and I could see my husband crying as well. I then violently slammed back into my body and felt intensely everything they were doing to bring me back. I had 4 IVs inserted in various places throughout my body as the nurses injected me with adenosine, 3 separate times to try to get my heart rate back down from 225 BPM. It worked on the 3rd try, and my heart rate went back down to a normal 80 BPM instantly. I looked over at my husband and told him I loved him, and he said he loved me back. They then wheeled me down for a CAT scan. I was diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism that had lodged in my heart for several moments before traveling to my left lung. The type of embolism I had was referred to by the nurses as a widowmaker, because 98% of people do not survive them. My NDE has made me more grateful for the time I get to spend with my loved ones. It also seems like a double-edged sword, as I can vividly remember how calming and serene I felt in the light. In the years since my experience, I have met some amazing people with similar experiences as mine, and some different with slight similarities. I know there is life after life, and that while I am in this lifetime, it is my duty to share my gifts with others. I am also trying to raise my own vibration and those around me through frequency, i.e. creativity and talent, in order to awaken their soul to its greater purpose. My life since the NDE has been a bit traumatic, since the people I have talked to so far cannot understand what I am talking about when I try to explain my NDE to them. Some think I have gone mad. I also notice that I do not connect to people the way I used to. Now much of the human race disgusts me, and I have severe anxiety trying to understand their issues. Many times their experiences seem so trivial and self-centered to me that my heart actually aches. I have also some new gifts since my NDE, I can hear, smell, and even taste electricity. I hear a humming or buzzing when an appliance or device is plugged in, even when it is turned to the off position. I can hear people's thoughts sometimes and get visions of their lives. I can read people's energy and have déjà vu often. I dream in vivid color and often leave my body again, as if checking on things at home and reaffirming that what I experienced is real. I remember things from the first 5 years of my life that I never knew before or had never been told. My whole life has completely turned around, and I have found it to be a blessing and a curse as I do not relate to the average person the way I used to. I do hope my story can help others who may be experiencing or have experienced what I went through. Brightest blessings to all who may come across my story. This story was shared by Talisa H. and happened in 2017. Story 2. The shock of the cold water caused me to gasp, and in doing so, I inhaled river water deep into my lungs. I became disoriented, losing my spatial orientation in the water. I could see the sky above but couldn't reach the surface to get air. The current dragged me down the more I fought against it. My lungs burned as panic set in. I suddenly believed that I was going to die there, and the last thing I remember was saying, "God, please help me." Without oxygen, I grew weaker and eventually stopped struggling entirely. I went limp in the cold darkness of the water, and suddenly I could no longer feel the burning and ache of the water in my lungs. The darkness around me grew completely white, and I felt like I was rushing at light speed through a tunnel. I felt warm as the pain left me, at peace with myself and the environment around me. Unconditional, pure love radiated all around me and into me. Love covered me like a warm blanket from an unknown source. As I left the tunnel, I was aware of parts of my body that were visible, like my hands, arms, and chest. Looking down, I couldn't see any feet. I did see a silver cord attached to my body which had a luminescence to it. Looking around me, I could see a room that appeared to be formed from pure white clouds yet wasn't solid. In the room were 3 beings, made of shimmering crystal. Light shone through them like a glass prism, forming a rainbow. One was larger than the other 2, but all of them spoke to me. I was afraid of them, and they seemed to realize this. Instantly, they transformed into what I recognized as angels. They didn't have bird wings. They had fibers like fiber optic cables that were shaped like wings, and pure light shone through the fibers, forming colors in all shades. When they spoke, their messages were sent telepathically. They could read my thoughts. Looking into their eyes, they were shades of intense colors that changed and shifted with electric sparks, almost as if I were watching a DVD still spinning in a DVD player. And the love radiated from their eyes, as if I were the most precious creation God had ever placed into existence. It was as if they knew me intimately, yet I didn't feel uncomfortable feeling that they did. The larger angel said,
"You have arrived too soon. The time has not come yet for you to be here. You must go back and finish your work on Earth. But since you are here, we will show you things."
The larger angel held a large book, but its pages were like images instead of words. I saw scenes of my life from the moment of my conception to the moment I fell out of the kayak into the river. The pages flipped rapidly like watching a movie. I was instantly reminded of all the things I did for others, or failed to do for someone. They showed me a man I didn't know, whose face I could not see clearly, and many children that were still yet to be. One of the smaller angels said,
"I am Yashael.
I have been with you since the dawn of time, and I will be with you for eternity. You must go back. You have to be there for them. I will show you what you can look forward to until then. Then you have to go back to your body." Instantly, Yashael and I were teleported to the center of a vast golden field. I could hear the most beautiful music and I could feel it moving through me. The breeze blew against the tall golden wheat stalks, and as it did, I could feel the spirit of all things living around me. Animals, plants, the elements. I was one with them. I looked up and saw a huge ball of light that cast the purest warm light all around me and felt God touch my skin. He knew me. He loved me no matter how imperfect my earthly life had been. I was perfect and whole. I felt no pain. The angel took me up higher, and I felt like I was soaring endlessly. I could see a huge waterfall with no beginning and no end. Love and peace reigned here. I sensed the presence of loved ones that had passed on, but I didn't see them. We moved over the golden field. and at the end of it was a country fence, and beyond that was the enormous tree with a canopy of gold leaves. When the breeze touched the leaves, they would fly off the tree's branches in the shape of colorful birds of all varieties. There was a lake beside it, and it flowed on both sides of the boundary. I looked down into the water, and it had a gloss to it like liquid mercury does, but when you look through it, you can see people that are living on Earth. Yashel said again,
I have been with you since the dawn of time, and I will be with you for eternity. You cannot cross the barrier. It is time for you to go back to your existence on Earth. You have work to finish first.
Words could not express the sorrow I felt to have to leave that place. I cried and begged for him to let me stay. He said,
When it is time, I will come for you, but now...
And with that, he wrestled my spirit back into my earthly body with so much force that I was popped clear of the rocky hole that I was trapped in under the water. All the water I inhaled came flying out of my lungs as I gasped and took a panicked breath of air. I became aware of the pain almost immediately in my chest, and the hand of a rescuer grabbing me by the back of my life vest. I nearly knocked him out of his kayak, and then someone else on a bigger water boat pulled me up into the boat and back into this earthly dimension. It took me a long time to understand why I am here, and still I question. Why me? I even did research about the Rogue River after my near drowning. Over 21 people have died at Blossom Bar since my NDE. They died and I survived. Because of my NDE, I am closer to God, and realize now that life is not a series of consequences, but of parallels and choices. My choices directly affect those around me, and we are all interconnected. My purpose had not yet been fulfilled. It would take me years to realize that I was meant to heal others. My sensitive abilities grew stronger after my NDE. I am empathic, claircognizant, and clairaudient now. I can hear the voices of those beyond the veil, but still have not trained myself to see spirit clearly with my human eyes. This story was shared by L'Oreal and happened in 1986.